Hey everybody, Seth David here from the world famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated, bringing to you another special screencast. This time we're talking about e-commerce accounting, plain and simple. I'm going to give you a very plain and simple look so that it's very easy to understand at the flow of accounting information. We're not going to get into inventory. That's another topic for another day. But I want you to understand, for example, I'm a big fan of WebGility as an e-commerce tool. WebGility will connect to your sales channels and grab the sales and sync them over to your QuickBooks Online company. It will also grab the payments from the various payment gateways and sync that information and handle the fees beautifully over in QuickBooks Online. And especially when you're dealing with something where it's very complex like Amazon, WebGility is a huge lifesaver. Here's the thing though. If you don't have a good understanding of how everything flows and how it needs to connect, then you're going to be lost when it comes time to set up WebGility or any other e-commerce tool for that matter. And my guess, not my guess, it's my experience based on talking to a lot of people, that many of you will go out and set up one of these apps to connect everything, and you really haven't taken the time to have the understanding of how things need to connect and how things need to flow. And then you're either going to end up having problems, which will be in endless support loops trying to get resolved because things aren't actually showing up the right way on the balance sheet and P&L, or you just don't know what you don't know. And bottom line, this is stuff you need to know. So what I'm about to go over in the short, simplified explanation is something that I believe is critical for anyone in the e-commerce world to understand before you even think about connecting an e-commerce app to grab your sales and your payments and push that all into QBO. Because you want to make sure you can account for every sale, which means you want to make sure you can account for every dollar of payment received on every sale as well as every dollar of fees charged, so that everything at the end of the day, this is the only way you'll be able to properly reconcile your bank account, because it's the only way you can make sure that the amounts that land in your bank account actually agree to what landed in your actual bank account. So with that in mind, let me show you what I'm talking about. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to record 3 sales transactions, right? And we're going to use the assumption of one sales channel, which is going to be Shopify. I'm looking at the chart of accounts down here. Okay, and then what happens is first the sale hits the sales channel. So all these sales that we're going to record are going to be for Shopify. Okay, then what happens is depending on how that sale was paid for, it's going to come out of Shopify and into one of our payment gateways, which you can see up here. Notice I've got these set up as bank accounts. This is because there are things I can do with bank accounts that I can't do with any other kind of account, such as creating an expense to cover the fees if I wanted to, right? There's just a lot more flexibility, which makes it much easier to record these transactions and achieve the kind of flow that we really need to in order to properly account for and categorize everything that happens from the sale to the net deposit, okay? So the sale comes in, right? It goes to Shopify and it's going to hit some income account based on the sales of the products, okay? Then we have to move money out of the sales clearing into whichever payment gateway was used. So that's why we're going to do 3 transactions, because we're going to do one where it's Stripe, another where it's PayPal, and a third one where it's Amazon Pay. And yes, you can take Amazon Pay through Shopify. It creates its own nightmare and mess in terms of the accounting on the back end, but it can be done, and it needs to be understood so that you understand even how that works, okay? So let's get into this. I'm going to start recording these transactions for you. Okay, now there's lots of different ways we could do this, and depending on which app you're using, one of the reasons I love WebGility is you have all the flexibility. I can choose to do summary level where it just posts one big transaction for that whole day's sales. I'm not a fan of that, but it's an option, and WebGility gives you the flexibility where you can choose to do that, or you can choose to post every order. I'm a much bigger fan of that. And I don't, of course, believe that we need to have all the customers in here, which is why you're going to see Shopify is going to be the customer, right? We'll have a customer called Shopify Sales. So I don't believe in having that detail, but I do love to have the order level details because I can get reporting that I need. And if I wanted to try and do that without having it centralized in QBO, then I'd have to go into each different payment gateway, or perhaps into my app in order to see everything, right? So I like knowing that I can rely on QuickBooks Online's reports to slice and dice the data and see the information that I need so I can provide the insights to my client so that they can understand how to make informed decisions about what to do, what direction to go, which products are selling well, which ones aren't, which channels they're selling well on, and on and on, okay? So we're going to record these as sales receipts, right? Everything is going to be a sales receipt. So I'm going to start off here with new and sales receipt. Okay, the customer is going to be Shopify. All right, we don't need the email or any of that. All right, the first sale, we're going to sell the Bat Signal desk lamp. Okay, and we're going to sell one of these for $150. Okay, so remember, we're just recording the sale here. We sold a lamp for $150. That's what's going to go into my Shopify clearing account, and that is what's going to hit my income line item on my profit and loss is $150. In other words, I haven't dealt with any fees yet. Okay, so I'm not going to deposit this to the bank account. I am going to deposit to the Shopify sales clearing or sales channel, right? That's what we do. We record the receipt. It goes in here because then it needs to come out of here and through the payment gateway, right? Because if I record this as a deposit into my bank account, I'm going to show a deposit in my bank account in QuickBooks of $150. I'm never going to see that deposit in my bank account when I look at the bank statement. That's just never going to happen, right? It's going to be either this net of fees based on the payment gateway or this plus the other two transactions depending on the timing and whether or not they're all in the same payment gateway. So this is the kind of stuff we have to understand and consider before we can be effective at doing the accounting for an e-commerce client. Okay, so I'm going to record this one and I'm going to record two more sales. All right, so at this point, I don't know, right? For all intents and purposes, let's pretend I don't know how this was paid for. That's how we need to set up the system, is based on the assumption that I don't know how it was paid for. In other words, the sale is its own completely separate transaction from the payment. Okay, so I hit save and new. We have, again, another Shopify sale. Okay, we're doing these all on the same day. Doesn't really matter. This time, we're selling the Spider-Man web shooter mug. Okay, and that's $45. Okay, one more. Again, Shopify's the customer. And this time we're selling the Wolverine claw bottle opener, one of these, at $25. So all of these got recorded as sales, landed in Shopify. Let's save and close. We're going to run a quick profit and loss. Because it's really helpful to run these financial statements and see. So we sold the three items that total $220, right? If I click in here real quick, here you can see the details. There's the 150, the 45, and the 25. So that's how it lands on the P&L. This is the gross income. This is what we earn, what we sold this stuff for. The fees come after, right? Now let's go to the balance sheet. And sure enough, in the balance sheet, my Shopify clearing account has $220, the same amount, right? Because in the next three transactions, I'm going to record the payments for each based on the three different payment gateways. And then we're going to come back. And so after this, everything that we're going to see is all in the balance sheet. The income statement is, I take that back. We'll have the fees that get recorded that hit the P&L, right? But most of the action from here on out is on the balance sheet. We're going to be pulling these transactions one by one out of Shopify and into the payment gateways, which you don't see here because there's no activity in them yet. Okay, so now in order to do the payment gateways properly, I need to do some quick setup. And I want to make sure it's clear. I want you to understand how this works in QuickBooks Online. This part might get a little tricky. So I'm going to go to Products and Services. Okay, and I'm going to create a new service item. Right, and we're going to call this Shopify Stripe. Okay, because really this is going to be designed to pull the money out of the Shopify sales channel and into the Stripe. That's why we kind of need both clear in the name. This tells me that this is what I'm using, so I can record another sales receipt that's going to pull money out of Shopify and put it into Stripe, right? So if we picture what a sales receipt looks like, the deposit to is going to be Stripe in this case, right? But for mapping purposes, whenever we use this, it needs to come out of the Shopify clearing account. So even though this is sort of calling for an income account, we can cheat here and actually not use it in the way it was sort of intended. So that's what I want to do here is I want to use the Shopify clearing account so that when I use this item, it will take it out of Shopify and it will put it into whichever account I use in the sales receipts dropdown, right? Which, using this item, tells me that I'd better have Stripe there, okay? So we're going to say save and new. Then we have Shopify PayPal. Okay, and still comes out of Shopify. That doesn't change. And finally, we have Shopify for Amazon Pay. And again, here, we're taking it out of that sales channel. Save and close. Okay, so we've got our sales. Now we need to record our payments for each sale. Okay, so we're going to use a sales receipt again. Okay, now for the customer, this isn't Shopify, right? We're beyond that, right? So the customer, you could use something generic like, well, let's do the Stripe one first, right? So it would be Stripe as a customer. Okay, and then I quickly just confirm the setup. All I really need is the name. Okay, same day, it's e-commerce, so the payment happens in the same moment as the sale does, right? But for accounting purposes, we need to split our thinking up between we have the sale, then we have the payment. So the payment, if I start typing Stripe, right, is going to be Shopify Stripe, and it's going to be the full amount of that sale, which was $150. Okay, and then the deposit to has to be the Stripe clearing. Right, so Stripe as a sub account of payment gateways. Okay, so when we think about this, the deposit to, it's putting the money into the payment gateway for Stripe. Okay, and it's taking the money out of whatever this was linked to, which again was that Shopify clearing. Now, in order to make sure that I'm not crazy and that I have no tricks up my sleeve, I'm going to duplicate my tab and we're going to pull up the balance sheet. Right, and you should do this too when you're just playing around and getting this set up to make sure that you understand it, and you should. Okay, but I want to make sure as soon as I record that transaction that the balance sheet reflects it exactly the way I intend. So what I should then see is $150 less in here, right? So there should be $70 left, and I should see the $150 in the payment gateway in the Stripe account. Okay, that's what we want to make sure. Everything else here looks good. Save and close. Go to the balance sheet, refresh, and there it is. So now I'm left with I have 150 in Stripe, and the sales channels are here. It's kind of backwards. Like normally I would want the sales channels first, which is a case to be made for using account number so that you could drive that order. But for now, since it's alphabetical, the payment gateways kind of come out on top, right? It would be a better representation of the flow if I had sales channels first and then payment gateways below, okay? But rest assured, this is clearly working. Let's record the other two transactions, and then we're done, right? So you've seen everything, how to set it up and how to record everything you need to. So let's go back up here, and another sales receipt. Okay, for this we'll do PayPal customer, something like that. Okay, and I'll save that because that's all I need for that. Over here, payment gateway is going to be PayPal. PayPal, if I start typing that for the product or service, there it is. Okay, the PayPal sale was for $45. Okay, save and close. Okay, and I'm going to go back and do one more thing on each of these, but first let's do Amazon Pay. So sales receipt, Amazon customer, and save. Amazon Pay. Okay, Shopify, Amazon, and this one was for $25. Save that. Back to the balance sheet and refresh. And now we have nothing left in Shopify. Everything's in the payment gateways. Now what we didn't deal with is the fees. So I'm going to show you how to work with that right now. In order to work with that, back into products and services, I need one more item, a service item, and this is going to be called, let's just more generically call it payment processing fees, right? Used to call it credit card processing fees, but there's so many other different kinds of payment methods these days, and they aren't necessarily credit cards, right? So I just call it payment processing fees. Okay, and over here we need an expense account, or some people like to put this in cost of goods sold for, you can also call it payment processing fees. Okay, I'll add that on the fly. Okay, let's say I do want it in cost of goods sold. Okay, it's not really cost of labor, just call it other costs of services, that's fine. And we can close that. And now we're back to here, so we've got that account linked. And save and close. And now, let's just do it through the balance sheet. I want to go back in and edit each of those transactions and show you how we deal with the fees. So for Amazon Pay is going to be a little different because that's going to run through your Amazon settlement report, right? So that's why I said earlier that it gets really tricky with Amazon Pay, because as I mentioned, it gets messy because you're basically taking Amazon as a form of payment on your Shopify sales channel. That payment's going to get lumped in with your Amazon settlement report, which is bi-weekly. So unlike PayPal and Stripe, you're not going to have a specific fee associated with that sale. It's going to all sort of flush out in that bi-weekly settlement report. And it's messy because from the Amazon side, you have money you've received that's not associated with a sale on Amazon, right? So it's all going to flush out as long as you know how to handle that. So Amazon Pay, this whole $25, is going to get lumped in with all the other Amazon payments, especially for sales that actually happened on Amazon. And then you deal with the fees, and that's something, WebGility will handle for you. I have done videos showing you how that works in terms of if you were to manually book that bi-weekly settlement report. So I'm going to skip that one and go straight into PayPal. And the way we want to do it is in the same sales receipt, because remember, this is how PayPal works. When you go into your PayPal activity, you don't get $45 and then a separate fee taken out. It'll show you on the download, you have the gross amount, the fee, and then the net. And the net is what really hits your PayPal balance. So over here, we're going to do credit card payment processing fees. Okay, and this goes in as a negative number. So let's say the fee for the, this is for the PayPal one. So it's $1.80, so minus 1.8, right? And this way, this nets to $43.20, which is, what the net amount would be. That shows up on that line item in PayPal for this transaction. And let's do the Stripe one. Okay, we don't want a new transaction. I just want to go back up to here, right? And so now this is only $43.20. We'll go into Stripe and edit that sales receipt. Okay, add a line item for payment processing. Minus, let's say $4.50. Oops. Okay, so that's netting to $145.50. Save and close. Back to our reports. Okay, so here's the balance sheet. Updated. So now we have the net amounts here. Where did the difference go? Now we go back and run the profit and loss, right? So let's go to reports. And that's why I said earlier, most of the action was going to come up on the balance sheet, but now we have the little bit of processing fees here on the P&L. Gross income hasn't changed, right? Because that's still what we got paid in exchange for the products we sold. And then we subtract the processing fees out, and that's our gross profit on those sales, basically. So that, my friends, is the e-commerce workflow, plain and simple. The next and final thing that'll happen with each of these is pretend these were the only sales, which hopefully they wouldn't be. Then this 4320 and this 145.50 is what's going to get swept into the bank account, right? And the way I'll end up recording that is, let's say we got a bank deposit, okay, and let's say this is going to be a few days later, okay, and it's going to go to Gotham National Bank. So I'm going to record a deposit into the bank account, and for the account here, what I'm going to take it out of is going to be PayPal. Okay, my net amount for the PayPal transaction is going to be $43.20. So again, this assumes there are no other transactions, right? Otherwise, it would be some larger amount that included, you know, the collective net amounts, right? But the bottom line is, when I save this, that's going to zero out my PayPal gateway, and it's going to put the money into the bank account. So save and close. And remember that for the sake of illustration, I posted that payment a couple days into the future, so we have to consider that when running this report. So I'll update the date, run report. Okay, now Gotham National Bank has $50,043.20, and PayPal is 0. Let's do the same thing with Stripe. Okay, back to the other screen. New deposit. Stripe is going to be 145.50. So Gotham National, dated in the future, Stripe. Okay, net 145.50. Save and close. Okay, that's the profit and loss. Nothing's going to change there. Run report. Make sure we're post dated. And sure enough, PayPal and Stripe are now 0. And Gotham National Bank has all the money, right? So that's the flow. It starts off in the sales clearing account, Shopify in this case. Then we parsed out 3 different payments into each of 3 different payment gateways. Then I showed you 2 out of the 3 how we deduct the fees, and then those clear out to the bank account. I didn't do Amazon Pay because that's much more complex. So you can see how this is sitting in here, and you would continue to accumulate money in Amazon Pay until you get that settlement report, and then you clear all the money received and all the fees, and then that net amount of that biweekly settlement report gets transferred from Amazon Pay into the bank account in much the same way. So again, this is stuff that's really important for you to get really clear on before you even think about using an app like WebGility. Then 2 things. 1, you'll understand why WebGility is so amazing, because it lets you map things with all the flexibility you need to ensure that you have this exact workflow going on. Not all apps do. Some apps are very limiting. In fact, some apps only let you do journal entries instead of sales receipts. And to me, based on what I just illustrated for you here, it's so important to me that you're able to use an actual sales transaction in QuickBooks Online to reflect the way money moves for an e-commerce type company. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. I look forward to answering them. One way you can definitely ask them, if you haven't yet, is join my community at community.nerdenterprises.com. I have a wonderful circle community. You'll probably find this video also posted there, and you are more than welcome to ask questions there, and I will definitely jump in and get them answered for you as quickly as possible.